Every tool shows in artwork. No matter what tool you're using, a paintbrush or grinding pad on an angle grinder, it shows up in your work. I like to have a small operation. I don't like to be crowded by tools, so I basically use MIG welder, I use angle grinders, and then drill with a wire wheel on the end of it. It's interesting that this was the first piece that I did where I got to break into a completely new process. It's the first time I've used CNC on a personal sculpture. Every one of my pieces start with reference, so it starts with that. I just compile as many images as I possibly can. I'm big on form, I'm big on basics. I don't just make a shell. It always has a frame, an armature, and that's where the pose comes in. I'm putting subtle things in. The little shoulder turns contrapposto. One fin's turning this way where the body's curving that way. And there's all these little subtle things you put in it that I'm amazed when I get to the end of the sculpture, they're still there. You still see those little subtle movements and those little subtle curves. Staying true to the anatomy is really important. You can't break the rules until you fully understand them. Sculptures look more alive because they are in a state of motion. That was something I thought of when I first started. I want to create robots that don't look like they just got off the assembly line. Once I get to a point where I have full scale down of the armature, that's when it really starts to get to another level of fun. I can pull stuff out and say, you know, this works here, this would be cool here, and that's when I can add elements that serve some purpose for that specific machine. So for the shark, there's vents and things coming out of it. There's little antenna and sensors that I put all over it that I would think that that robot would have. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. When I'm working with steel, I like to hide all my welds because, again, going back to the psychology of like you see something that's welded together and what do you immediately think? It's strong. So hiding all my welds in my sculptures make them appear as if they can actually move. Another really challenging thing with this sculpture specifically is that it comes apart in two pieces. So I had to figure out a way to install those after the shark got coated. Once you get to that point where you're like, all right, this is it, and the sculpture just starts to kind of build itself. So that's another thing that's really exciting, letting it choose its own parts from the scrap and where they go. I always think that it's the sculpture that's doing that, not so much myself.
Right.